Welcome. Did you know that Christmas was once the spookiest time of the year? Forget trick-or-treating. People used to gather around the fireplace on long, dark December nights to tell ghost stories. This tradition, popular in the Victorian era, even inspired Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. So, in that spirit, let's turn down the lights, get cozy, and delve into a terrifying tale that reminds us why some ghosts aren't just for Halloween. This is the chilling story of the Sinclair family, and a Christmas that the world would never forget. The year was 1993. Snowflakes were just beginning to drift down, painting the town of Aspen Creek, Colorado, in a soft, festive white. Inside a cozy two-story house, the air was thick with the scent of pine needles and roasting turkeys. 35-year-old George Sinclair smiled, watching his new wife, Terry, laugh as she helped her 3-year-old daughter, Harley, unwrap another present. Across the room, George's own daughter, Kayla, also 3, was squealing with delight over a shiny, pink, remote-control Barbie car. This was their first Christmas as a blended family. It had been a whirlwind year. George had lost his first wife, Janine, in a tragic car accident 2 years prior. The grief had been a heavy cloak, but meeting Terry felt like the first ray of sunshine after a long storm. She was kind, patient, and loved Kayla as her own. Their daughters, born in the same year, had become inseparable, like twin sisters who had just found each other. Tonight, surrounded by family and friends, the house was filled with warmth and joy, a perfect picture of a fresh start. Harley had received a little blonde baby doll, the kind that was all the rage that year. It crawled on its own, giggled, and babbled nonsensical baby talk. She named it Lily and carried it everywhere. The floor of the living room was a sea of discarded wrapping paper, new toys, and colorful boxes. As the evening wore on and the guests began to depart, a sense of peaceful exhaustion settled over the house. George was in the kitchen, stacking plates, when he heard a faint worry sound from the living room. He glanced over the counter and saw Kayla's new Barbie car slowly rolling across the hardwood floor. It moved in a jerky, hesitant line before bumping gently into the leg of the coffee table. He chuckled to himself. "Kayla, honey, time to put the toys away for the night," he called out. "But I'm not playing, Daddy," her little voice piped up from the top of the stairs, where she and Harley were getting ready for bed with Terry. George frowned. He walked into the living room and saw the pink remote sitting right where they'd left it, on the arm of the sofa, untouched. He picked it up, checked the power switch. It was off, chalking it up to a short circuit or some kind of radio interference from a neighbor's device. He shrugged, turned the car off, and placed it next to the remote. It was just a weird glitch. The next day, the day after Christmas Day, the strange occurrences continued. The baby doll, Lily, would start giggling from inside the toy box when no one was near it. The television would switch channels on its own, always landing on a static-filled screen. George and Terry tried to laugh it off. "This old house has its quirks," George would say, trying to reassure both Terry and himself. But a small, cold knot was tightening in his stomach. This house wasn't old. They'd had it built just a year before he met Terry. By evening, the light snowfall had transformed into a full-blown blizzard. The wind howled, rattling the windows and piling snow in massive drifts against the doors. The local news warned of a historic storm, advising everyone to stay indoors. Then, with a sudden, deafening pop, the lights flickered once and died. The house plunged into an unnerving darkness, broken only by the dim, swirling white outside the windows. Terry quickly lit candles, their flickering flames casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. The girls, thankfully, thought it was a fun adventure, a big sleepover in the living room. They gathered blankets and pillows, building a fort around the fireplace. George managed to get a good fire going, its crackling a comforting sound against the fury of the storm. For a moment it felt cozy, like they were in their own little bubble, safe from the world. But the feeling didn't last. As George stoked the fire, a bone-chilling cold swept through the room, a cold that had nothing to do with the blizzard outside. It was a damp, penetrating chill that seemed to seep right into his bones. The flames in the fireplace shrank back, sputtering as if starved of air. The girls, huddled in their blanket fort, suddenly went quiet. "Daddy," Kayla whispered, her voice trembling. "The lady is here." George's blood ran cold. "What lady, sweetie?" he asked, his voice strained. Harley pointed a shaky finger toward the darkened hallway. "A sad lady. She's crying." George and Terry exchanged a panicked look. George grabbed the heaviest flashlight they had and aimed its beam down the hall. There was nothing there, just an empty corridor and the family photos hanging on the wall. But as the beam passed over a photo of George and his late wife, Janine, the glass on the frame suddenly cracked, a spiderweb of fractures spreading from the center. A low, guttural sob echoed from the end of the hall. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated anguish, and it was a sound George recognized. It was the way Janine used to cry when she was deeply, inconsolably hurt. "Janine," he whispered into the darkness, his voice barely audible. The crying stopped, replaced by a sharp, whispery voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You replaced me." The Barbie car suddenly shot out from under the couch, its wheels spinning furiously as it raced across the room and slammed into the stone hearth of the fireplace, shattering into pieces. At the same time, the baby doll Lily began to crawl out of the toy box. But its movement was no longer cute. It was spidery and unnatural. Its head twisted around 180 degrees to face them, but painted-on smile looking like a grotesque snare. The giggling that came from its speaker was no longer joyful, but a high-pitched, mocking cackle. Panic erupted. Terry grabbed the girls, pulling them behind her as George stood between his family and the unseen presence. "Janine, stop it. You're scaring the children," he yelled, his voice cracking with fear. The whisper came back, colder and filled with venom. "They are not your children. One is mine, the other is hers." The temperature in the room plummeted. Frost began to creep up the inside of the windows, despite the roaring fire. The candles flickered violently before extinguishing one by one, plunging them back into near total darkness. The only light was the dying glow from the fireplace and the weak beam of Georgia's flashlight. For the next 3 days, they were trapped. The storm raged outside, making escape impossible. Inside, Janine's tormented spirit waged a war of psychological terror. She never showed herself fully, but her presence was a constant, oppressive weight. Doors would slam open and shut. Objects would fly across the room. Whispers would slither from the shadows, filled with accusations and rage. Twisting George's memories, turning happy moments with Terry into acts of betrayal. She focused her torment on Terry. The wedding album was found shredded in the kitchen. Terry's favorite perfume bottle exploded on her dresser, filling the air with a cloying, sweet scent that quickly turned sour and rotten. The entity would whisper Terry's name from dark corners, mimicking Georgie's voice, luring her toward empty rooms before slamming the door shut, trapping her inside until a terrified George could pry it open. The children were not spared. Their toys would move on their own, not in a playful way, but in a menacing one. The baby doll Lily became a constant vessel for Janine's rage. It would appear in the most unexpected places, at the top of the stairs, on their pillows, its head always twisted backward, its electronic cackle echoing through the silent house. George felt himself breaking. He was trapped between the ghost of the woman he had once loved and the family he loved now. He tried to reason with her, pleading with her to find peace, to let them go. P apologized for any pain he had caused, for moving on. But his pleas were met only with shrieks of rage and escalating violence. The house itself seemed to be turning against them. The floorboards groaned under an unseen weight, and the walls seemed to whisper and watch. On the morning of December 29th, the world outside fell silent. The wind had stopped. The sun was breaking through the clouds, glinting off a pristine, untouched landscape of deep snow. The blizzard was over. Later that day, a snowplow operator, clearing the main road into the isolated neighborhood, noticed the Sinclair's house. He saw that the chimney wasn't smoking, which was odd in the frigid aftermath of the storm. A sense of unease prompted him to call the sheriff's department to request a welfare check. When deputies finally managed to plow their way to the front door, they found it unlocked. The house was cold and deathly still. Inside, the living room was a scene of chaos. Furniture was overturned, blankets and pillows were strewn everywhere, and the shattered remains of a pink toy car lay by the hearth. In the center of the room, sitting upright and facing the door, was a single blonde baby doll. Everything else was in disarray, but the doll was perfectly, unnervingly placed. There was no sign of a struggle, no evidence of foul play. But the Sinclair family, George, Terry, Kayla, and Harley, was gone. An extensive search was launched, but the deep snow revealed no tracks leading away from the house. They searched the surrounding woods, the frozen lakes, and every inch of the property. Nothing. It was as if the four of them had simply vanished into thin air. The only things left behind were their belongings. A house full of unwrapped Christmas presents, and a lingering, unnatural chill that no furnace could ever seem to warm. The case went cold, becoming one of Aspen Creek's most haunting local legends. Some say Janine's jealous rage was so powerful it tore a hole between worlds and dragged her family into it. Others believe she drove them out into the blizzard, where they perished, their bodies never to be found under the immense snowfall. The house was eventually sold, but no family ever stayed long. They all reported the same things: phantom whispers, the sound of a woman crying, and sometimes, late on a quiet night, the faint, electronic giggle of a child's doll. The story serves as a chilling reminder that while some spirits visit to teach a lesson, others return for revenge. And sometimes the ghosts of Christmas past are not content to remain in the past. This story was written from things that happened in my past, mixed with a healthy dose of fiction. And if you enjoyed this spooky story, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more tales from the dark side. Stay safe and happy holidays.